champion, the legend of Indian chess, and still extremely active even at the age of 55 years. There he is playing for the top board of Team Freedom at the FIDE World Blitz Team Championship in London. And handshake between Vishy and Grischuk. They have played against each other for years and years, so both have great knowledge of each other's style. And I remember very vividly seeing one of their most epic games in the Tal Memorial 2018. You should check that out. Now the players are ready. Handshake and off we go. Vishy with the white pieces opens with 1 e4. We have the Sicilian. Knight to f3, e6 played by Grischuk, and pawn to d4. The open Sicilian has been played. Knight comes out to c6, and Vishy goes knight c3. We have the 4 knights on the board, and Vishy goes for the most sharp line here with pushing the pawn forward. Knight comes to d5, knight e4 with the idea to push the pawn away, and bishop b7. Slightly rare because more common is queen c7 and then queen b6 there. But bishop b7 gets Vishy thinking a bit. Vishy's like, okay, I'm simply going to play bishop e2 and castles. That's what he does, keeping a very strong center control. Queen comes up to c7. Knight jumps in. Bishop takes. Pawn takes. You can't take with the queen because of c4. So queen c6 eyeing this square, and Vishy plays f3. It's difficult to surprise Vishy Anand. He is well prepared here as well. With f3, he's moving quickly. And now Grischuk plays pawn to e5. Anand pushes his pawn to c4. Knight jumps into f4. He chops it off. E takes f4 played. And now queen d2 is the normal move here. Yes, he plays his queen to d2. Black castles. Vishy chops off the pawn. He's like, I'm a pawn up. Yes, my pawn on d6 is a bit weak. You can attack it with rook e8 and e6. And he goes rook a e8. Anand plays his bishop to d3. We still have some good players who have played this with rook e6 here. And this has happened between the game of Arjun Erigaisi, Harsha Bharatkoti, Surya Ganguly, Vladimir Fedosiev, and many well-known players. You can see Grischuk thinking a bit there. Well, rook e6 is kind of the only logical move here, because you don't want white to consolidate with rook e1. So rook e6, and maybe there's a small idea which is to go rook d1. So that if you take, I can take on h7. Exactly. Now rook d6 is impossible because of bishop takes h7 and white wins. So Grischuk will have to stop that idea with perhaps g6. But then isn't Vishy doing really well here? He plays pawn to g6. And now bishop to e4 could be an idea. The interesting question to ask here is that even though black is a pawn down, why is the position still close to equality? Well, the reason is black controls the e file, the d6 pawn is a bit weak, and you can attack these queenside pawns here. So Anand goes bishop b1. Very interesting decision. He wants to keep the bishops on the board. Rook e8, doubling down the e file. And I would be quite interested to see if Vishy wants to go and attack on the king side with h4, h5. You're trying to break open the king side. Now Anand down to 1 minute 36 seconds. He plays pawn to h3. This is a little bit more calm move. Queen to b6, attacking the b2 pawn, very quickly defended with pawn to b3. It's difficult for both sides to find a plan here, because kind of black is mobilized fully. What next to do? Maybe one idea is to play a5, a4 to try and create a weakness on b3. That could be one plan potentially. Yes, he goes a5. He pushes his pawn forward. And Vishy could place his bishop on c2, but then there is rook e2. So he goes rook d2, taking control of the second rank. And now Grischuk can push the pawn to a4. He can also try to trade the rooks with rook e2. I'm not so sure about that. But look at the time on the clock. Anand at 1 minute 30 seconds. Grischuk has 1 minute 10 seconds. Bishop c6 played here. Again, the idea is a4. And now bishop e4. Very important and interesting move, because take, pawn takes, suddenly the f7 pawn is hanging. Great idea by Vishy. He takes on c6. Queen takes c6. So the bishops are now traded. Do you want to go like rook d5, putting the rook there? Yes, he places his rook on the d5 square. And Alexander Grischuk still has very good compensation for the missing pawn. He goes rook e2. Anand quickly says, let me get rid of one pair of rooks. King goes to h2. And now rook to e6. Let's see what Vishy does now. Queen d2. Excellent move there. Coming back with the queen. He has 20 seconds on the clock more. He has a great position. Vishy should be able to put pressure on Grischuk. He's coming in with f5. And if black goes f5, it would definitely be weakening the position a bit, because the king gets weak. f6 might be a better move, just staying here. But Grischuk now down to 38 seconds. Has to make his move quickly. And he pushes his pawn to f5. But now Vishy goes all in with g4. Maybe better was queen b2 and queen a3. But g4 takes. Have to be slightly careful here, because if Grischuk gets his queen this way, it can be dangerous. But look at Anand. He's going for the mate. He goes f5. Insane. If gf5, he wants to go maybe queen g5 check already. Or queen f4 to attack with the two rooks and the queen. Grischuk has only 10 seconds left. 12. Rook e3 trying to block the queen. But now just h takes g4. And then f6 is coming in. White is in control, although the white king does look a bit weak. H g4. Queen d8 trying to come here, but push the pawn, Vishy. f6 check. Gets the job done. f6, king f7, rook takes c5. He goes g5, a big mistake. Because now queen e8 and Grischuk finds it. What a move. Queen b2 check, but king g8. And now the problem is there's rook e2 coming in. The king is a bit too weak. f6, king f7, blocking that pawn. And the three pieces have just completely entered the game. Vishy Anand has more time on the clock, but absolutely nothing that he can do. He's kind of lost here, because if queen c2, there's queen e6 coming into the h3 square. Suddenly, it's the white king who's weak and the black king who's super safe. Anand's time running down to 14 seconds. This is the nature of blitz. It changes so quickly. It all changed in just one move. King g2, queen e4 check, and resignation. It's a mate coming up, and Alexander Grischuk scores a very important win. You could see him